Let's see.
You know what's the most interesting thing? Well, I'd like to listen to you a little bit more. I have something really interesting that I thought, like, I didn't know this was all going to happen. I thought I was going to organize, like, a teach-in. Apparently thorium isn't a bad idea.
Wait, did you organize this whole thing?
This whole, like, occupation? No.
Yeah.
Hell no. No, I give the tours. I'm the tour guide, dude.
Oh, you're the tour guide.
Yeah, but I studied operations, research, and information engineering at Cornell University, class of 2009.
Oh, wow.
Here I am.
So what in particular excites you about thorium? I mean, as far as I can tell, it's very exciting, but I like nuclear power in general.
I don't know. It's just, it's a time for dreaming. You know what I mean? The thorium people are the first people who will turn around and tell you, you mean it's safe? You mean it's like, you know, you mean it's not like weaponizable? You mean that, you know, it's abundant? Like, I'm a millennial, right? And so and you guys, I guess, are older millennials, and I'm in the middle, right? But I don't carry any of this self-righteousness that I feel a lot of people have who are baby boomers. Not to whatever on baby boomers or whatever, but, you know, I wasn't raised as a little prophet, right? I was raised as a little civic, right? And so I'm amenable to, I mean, I don't know about the XL pipeline or anything like that, but, like, I don't know, I just saw a documentary on it. That's something I'd like to know more. And so what this occupation is all about is I went ahead and tweeted some people and say, hey, I want to hear more about thorium. It sounds great. You guys admit it's too good to be true. I'd like to hear more, and ideally with that structure, which, you know, I'm not directly related to the structure and all, but it's all my brothers and sisters, and I mean, I'm in love with all of them, you know. That was supposed to be a place where we could have, all right, let's bring in the thorium guy to talk about thorium.
So it was actually going to be a forum for.
Hey, we were supposed to have.
Could I go there?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you could have a teach-in, but you know, the idea here is that we're trying to promote civic debate on all facets of our society. If this was just a single protest, I'm a DC kid. I grew up in Maryland, born in DC, you know, and it's nothing to have, like, even 500,000 people on the mall. That's called 4th of July, you know what I mean? Given how everything is, you know, like, you ask me when I list demands, I don't even know where to get started, right? I'm not here for any particular, I'm an engineer, so I think about dorky things like energy and demographics and transportation and all of that. But ultimately, like, I'm here for the structure, the idea that people can have face-to-face debates, right? So you might have like the strictly anti-nuclear crowd. I've seen the numbers on what sustainable energy can provide, even though, like, I firmly believe the reason why, you know, oil would be just as expensive. I should check the facts on this, but, you know, the price of gasoline would be a lot higher if the government didn't subsidize all of it, right? And
I definitely disagree with that. But
I mean, I'm good. I just had some. Ask Kenny in the. Kenny in the. I think he in the information booth. In the information booth. Anyway,
So I have a question about this issue of debate. Right? So the issue of how do I put this? I mean, whether nuclear power, say just a traditional uranium-based reactor, meets a certain threshold of safety is an established fact based on 40 years of testing, or more than 40.
So a good question is, we've had a moratorium on nuclear energy.
Yeah,
is that a good idea or not? I don't know. I'd like to learn more.
It seems like that's the kind of thing that should be settled through like a clear scientific investigation,
Right.
and then legalizing, and not a bunch of people who don't know anything.
Right.
But
And
then even more importantly, if we're talking about viability, or what you call sustainable energy, I don't like that term because I think the real sustainable thing is to have evolution over time in energy. So before you run out of one energy, you found a better one, and that's a better thing than trying to just use the sun because the sun is going to be around for billions of years. Sun is not direct sunlight is not a particularly efficient form of energy conversion. But why not? I don't like the fact that people are debating that with the implication that whoever wins the debate will get it passed into law. I think it should be competed on the market in the same way that cell phones compete on the market. We don't debate here over should Verizon win or should AT&T win.
Well,
we vote with our pocketbooks, and that way no one is forced.
That's the point, and that's why I'm here, right? I need a little bit more preparation and time. I mean, this is, I guess, you're correct. I mean, this is who you guys are with. I'm with the motherfucking occupation. dog. You know what I mean? This is me and my people, right? So what it is I defend isn't necessarily anti-nuclear, pro-nuclear, pro-wind farm, anti-wind farm solution to everything.
Right.
I'm here for the structure, right? Because for me to say that I demand something specific limits me myself only to my imagination, whereas a structure like this yields, you know, new ideas and new solutions and all that about the future. Now, I don't know, I can't speak too much about, you know, I really should pay attention a lot more about energy in this country. It's more of a transportation nut anyway. But, for instance, you know, is it self-righteous for the, you know, for the people who are, like, advocating, like, gosh, what's the word for it? There's a, you know, uranium, plutonium-based energy, to go ahead and push uranium, plutonium-based energy, and then we forget about thorium because you can't turn thorium into something you can bomb in the Soviets.
Just to make clear what my own position is, as much as possible, you should have a free market like you have in computers, where you have clear safety standards, you have laws protecting property rights, but besides that, it's may the best man win. So the way you figure out what's best is what can actually produce the best, most plentiful, cheapest energy.
Well, given your policy position, right? What I'm saying is sideways to all of that, because it's not about what I or anybody here thinks is a specific policy issue. It's the free speech right to talk about it in a civil way.
But who's denying the free speech right to talk about it?
Well, you know, so much beautiful things have come around here. It's just basically, I tell people on my tour, there's no tweet, there's no Facebook page, there's no YouTube video, there's no newspaper article, there's no anything in the whole world that'll replace a face-to-face interaction, right? And so my belief is if it's just a single day thing where you're tracking a single cause kind of thing, right, you're not building the roots of a firm foundation of not self-righteous, thought out, debated, and discussed things. And that's why I believe in a 24/7 occupation. I'm lucky enough to work. I'm lucky enough to live in a nice warm bed. I'm lucky enough for all these things. But two things, right? First off, this is the end of the road for a lot of people. Given how difficult it's been for a lot of people, this is the end of the road. And so I'm proud that I'm part of something that feeds the hungry.
So just out of curiosity, to what extent do you think that is the case? Because for instance, where I come from, Orange County, all these guys can go home to a warm bed.
Which Orange County?
In Irvine.
Irvine, all right, California. My point is, if you look at kind of how space has been allocated in society, I believe that, you know, it's everything, right? But like the recent housing boom and everything, I believe that the way that decisions have been made about how space and resources have been allocated in the society has been driven by very distorted incentives. A lot of people here hate capitalism. I'm all right with it, I guess. But, you know, I always say it's one thing to grow up, win the birth lottery, go to great school, go to Cornell University, get in with a good company, rise to the top, and run that company well and be rewarded for it. It's another thing that we've seen in the last 10 years, where you are born in the birth lottery, go to a great school, go to a company, but that company makes very poor decisions and and promotes very distorted incentives. That company can very easily pay away for everybody to be quiet about those incentives. And then yet, in the last financial crisis, nobody was fired. Everybody got their golden parachutes. Everybody got their golden parachutes and their pensions and everything. I just don't think that makes for a robust society. Right now, in capitalism. Exactly.
But it's not capitalism.
It's not. It's socialism for the rich, right? So I'm very sensitive to our movement being characterized as anything other than what it is, which is a new structure for debate over the issues in our society.
But see, the more that you have a free society where everything is voluntary, all of those things in terms of free debate, new ideas, they take care of themselves, and they happen in a very profound way. So if you look at what gave us the iPhone, I mean, it's in part Steve Jobs, his team, but more broadly, it's a whole competitive process in every single scientific and engineering and design aspect that was the combined ingenuity of millions and millions and millions of people. Now that's a voluntary and beautiful process, but it's not people getting together a bunch of tents and protesting. It's people being free to interact with each other on a voluntary basis. So what I'm saying is that should be the rule everywhere.
So who controls the way that people interact on a voluntary basis?
Well, themselves, if they're free.
If they're free,
not, then it's the government.
Can I add something, or sorry?
Give it a minute.
Okay, sorry. I apologize.
Wait in line. lights. I love the camera pig. I love the lights. No, you can stick around, but and he'll probably help me out better because he's probably less of an engineer and less thinking about like how to feed people and clothe people, right? I haven't fundamentally disagreed with anything you've said at all, right? And you're okay looking, so I'll sit here for however long you'd like me to, and I'll talk to you. However, the people who are coming from the positions that you are, even better, I encourage to come and be involved in their local occupation movement. It's that simple. You have something to add to the debate. You've got a perspective. We've got Ron people on the square across the street from the socialist people, right? The idea that people cling to the idea that there's this one solution out there, whether it's something I agree with or disagree with, is antiquated, right? If I invite you to come to this square, I invite people to listen to you, and I invite you to listen to other people, and it's as simple as that. That's what I'm occupying for, right? Whether I personally agree with what you've got to say or whatever, it's just not that place where I can be firm and something. The only thing I'm firm about is how much I love the people around me, how hard they're working to make this happen, and the structure by which we make decisions around here.
So this seems quite. I mean, I've been to a couple of these. So I mean, I was at Zuccotti Park.
Sure.
In Orange County. Now here, this seems more focused on sort of discussion because I've gone to the other ones I've been to.
Right.
I would explain my views that we should have a free market in energy. That these existing forms of energy that they hate are in fact incredibly vital to their lives as we know it.
Well,
and they would basically say, "You're wrong. We stand for quote clean renewable energy, and that's it. That's what Occupier." So you don't seem to think that it has as. And the same thing they would say, well, we stand for, dramatically redistributing the wealth of the quote 1%. Is that a position?
Well, we didn't say that.
Have?
Well, we didn't say that. I personally, and remember, I only speak as my own proud name as a participant, not doing with any of these other people, right? There's nothing I believe that is necessarily redistributive about calling out the 1%. However, the 1% has a disproportionate amount of ability to restrict speech or to allow it or to allow speech in however
How
form
has the
they like.
1% restricted your speech?
Well, there's three things, right? There's three policy positions that I've read as observations here, right? First things are corporations people, and are corporations allowed to give unlimited amounts of money to a political campaign? That is something I disagree with.
How is that restricting your speech?
Well, if I have a voice but somebody has the money to get rid of me, that's a restriction.
He's not getting rid of you. Might have a more prominent platform. It's the same thing. So in my field, let's say...
No, but I mean the idea is if I am debating a person right now sitting in this chair, it doesn't matter how much money you have, how much money I have, and I don't find that's true in in our society in America today.
But why shouldn't? So if let's say I'm part of the 1%, which I'm not yet. But if I'm part of the 1%, why shouldn't I be able to use as much of my money as I want to voice my views, especially?
Well, it's one thing if you're an individual. It's another thing if you're a corporation.
But what's a corporation?
Corporation is defined as a legal fiction to be a person, and I don't agree with that. I understand the history of that. But it's the only way that we can get corporations.
But it's just a set of individuals who made some contracts to accomplish some mutually beneficial goals together. So if I own stock in a corporation, the corporation is nothing more than the individuals who comprise it. So if the corporation is spending money, it's those individuals choosing directly or indirectly to spend that money, and it would be a restriction of free speech to restrict that process. So if I'm a shareholder in Nike and I like their positions, I would like Nike to say as much. I don't know Nike, I don't even know their positions.
But how do you know that Nike is everything you want it to be?
But then that's part of what you have to choose when you connect yourself to a corporation. You have to be
but if you're a corporation and if there's 5 individual corporations who own X% of the media in this country, is that fair? Right? Okay, that's number one. Number 2 has to do. I'm like Rick Ferry here. I forgot what number 2 is. The number 3rd thing that I'm most concerned with is if you're a politician, right, and you have a stake in the aerospace industry, say, should you have the right to legislate? You know what I mean? Isn't there a conflict of interest there if you're a legislature and you can write laws concerning your own specific corporation? Does that make for a robust and competitive society?
Well, can I ask you a counter question? Because I think that's problematic. But what's also problematic is the government has many people. Well, all I want is voluntary interaction. So that means the government has to get out of of dealing favors in the first place. But unfortunately, it's got lots of power for some. Like, let's say you're a scientist, and you're really attached to a theory, and the government has a huge amount of control over science and scientific research. I think there's an enormous conflict of interest and problem with someone, say, like Al Gore, who's devoted his whole life to a certain theory, and his whole reputation and power is bound up in that theory, that he gets to decide where money for climate science goes to, regardless of whether he's right or not. It's a huge distortion, and it filters throughout the system. So what you need is a government where you have a separation of economy and state, so that companies can't manipulate the government, and the governments can't manipulate companies. We also need, I think, a separation of ideas and state, of science and state. So the types of incentives that you guys are talking about, which do exist in very real ways, are a much broader problem than just Lockheed Martin being in the pocket of this one politician, or vice versa.
Well, you're absolutely right. That's what we're all here for. And
but I don't think
God bless you for coming around and talking.
I don't think
and
they
having
think of it as I think my problem with the Occupy movement is they seem to want more government intrusion in life, or government intrusion for the causes that they like. And what I would like is to get
the right. I mean, I suppose we want the right. I mean, I don't know what anybody else is thinking and all, but I'm here to speak, right? And I'm here to defend everybody else's ability to speak, right?
Well, I'm not opposing that, although there's a whole legal question of
whether
is this the best way to do that.
Right, but we've got it. I mean, this is our thing, man. Like,
well, it might be nice for some people, if they could walk
right,
around
I mean,
the
I think people can. I don't know. It's been a long day, dude.
All right, well, I won't take any more of your time, but I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me. My name's Alex, by the way.
Alex, peace and love.
What's your name?
I'm Ryan.
Ryan.